So under our next speaker's leadership, San Francisco's economy grew and jobs were created. The city became a center for biotech and clean tech. Universal health care was made available to all the city's uninsured residents. Project Homeless energized volunteers across the city to help move 7,000 homeless individuals off the streets. I am truly honored to introduce the San Francisco Mayor, Gavin Newsom. Gavin?
Thanks, Ernie. Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you, Ernie. Thank you, guys. Well, thank you all very much for this opportunity. I have no idea why I was invited out here, but I jumped at the opportunity, and I'm very grateful. And with that, I hope to distill at least a little bit of our thinking out in the West Coast of the United States, in that city, San Francisco, that was probably best described as a 49-square-mile city surrounded by reality. A city, think about that, a city that I think was also best described as a city of dreamers and doers, of entrepreneurs, of innovators, a city that's long prided itself on being on the leading and cutting edge of new ideas. I think that's the spirit of California in the broadest sense, but it's certainly the spirit of one of its first big cities, San Francisco. And it's a spirit, candidly, that brought me to politics many, many years ago and brings me here today. I have long believed that we wildly, as individuals, overstate what we can do in a year, but significantly understate what we can do in 2, 4, 5, and 10 years. And as a consequence, I'm constantly seeking and searching for new ways of doing things and trying to bring an entrepreneurial spirit into the life of our city. I come from the private sector to politics. I've been in local politics about 15 years. I had the privilege of opening a small business right out of college and now have over 1,000 employees throughout the state of California. And I've come with a great sort of energetic belief that government can be more entrepreneurial, can be more focused on, well, candidly, taking risks, learning from mistakes, that we can force and forge new ideals and ideas by manifesting things, by trying new things. You got to increase the number of tries. And for me in politics, the problem is we don't increase the number of tries. We're risk adverse by definition. We're scared to death of tomorrow's headline. And for me, and I think those of you that may know a thing or two about me know that I'm not risk adverse. I tend to find myself in the heart of controversy, but I also pride myself on trying to solve problems and solve some of the most vexing and controversial problems of our time. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, 2 of them. Issue of the environment, which is transcendent and connects us all together, and the issue of healthcare, because it's clearly timely and deserves some attention. The issue of the environment is interesting. We had the opportunity in 2005, when I just took the oath of office in San Francisco, to have the UN descend upon San Francisco to hold their World Environment Day. It was the first time in U.S. history that the UN decided to actually hold a big environmental conference in the United States, which is suggestive in terms of our global leadership. It's not a critique, it's an observation, but at the time, cities across the country, large and small, were growing increasingly impatient and frustrated by the fact that we did not enter into the world dialogue around the Kyoto protocols. And that's not a political shot at one party or the other. Remember, it was the Democrats and Republicans that joined when President Clinton sent Al Gore out to Kyoto, and it was Congress that rejected it, both parties that rejected the idea of establishing those Kyoto protocols. But there was angst and frustration that we were going to abandon that stewardship and leadership. And what cities decided to do, in the spirit of not just dreaming, but the spirit of doing, is we came together and we put together local global climate action plans. And we focused on what it is as an urban leader or urban representatives that we can do to advance an environmental framework and environmental stewardship. UN came out in 2005 and we invited over 100 mayors from around the globe to come together. Not only did it mark the first time the UN was in the U.S. for an environmental conference, a significant one, but it also marked the 60th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations in the city and county of San Francisco. And interestingly, as we discovered through the week and the conference, that it also marked something fascinating and significant in human history. And that was more people on the planet were then living in urban centers than in suburban and rural areas. That we have seen over the last few decades this massive shift of urbanization globally, dominantly in India, certainly dominantly in China, but by no means exclusive to those remarkable countries. The fact is, every single week on this planet, 1 million to 1.5 million people are moving into urban centers and urban cores. In 2005, it was those same urban centers around the globe that were consuming about 75% of the Earth's natural resources and roughly polluting an equivalent amount in terms of CO2. And it was a great realization for me, and I think elected officials and stewards in cities across the world, that we needed to be a bigger part of this climate frame. That at the end of the day, global consumption is really the sum total of local consumption. And that if we're already consuming 75% of the Earth's natural resources and we're continuing to see this mass urbanization, we got to reconcile that. We got to do something about that. And the greatest opportunity lied with city leaders coming together across their differences and advancing fundamental principles. And that's exactly what we did. We signed up 26 accords with mayors, again, large and small, from cities just 100,000 to cities of over 10, 20 million. And I think this was also a great realization at the time, that there are more and more of those mega cities. And the challenges in those mega cities are self-evident. Houston is not there yet, but you're growing. In 1960, there were only 111 cities worldwide with a population of 1 million or more. In 2008, just last year, we marked over 300. And in just a few years, and this, by the way, these were conservative estimates. These numbers have to be adjusted. But by 2015, it's conservatively estimated there'll be 26 of these mega cities with over 10 million people in population. They don't have enough water. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the capacity to move people or goods. They're stifled. This is serious. We're going from a population of 6.7 billion people today by 2050 to 9.2 billion people. China alone, just to put this in perspective, China alone has a dedicated policy that they're going to move 400 million people into their city cores by 2030. That's more than the entire population of the United States of America. Over half of the buildings that will be constructed over that period of time will be constructed in China alone. So we have got to get serious as city leaders about what's going on in terms of global stewardship and climate. So here's what we did briefly, and then I want to move to just that second topic, healthcare. We put together the most aggressive local global climate action plan in the nation. Our goal was to roll back our greenhouse gas emissions 20% below 1990 levels by 2012. In essence, go twice as far as the Kyoto protocols. To say, of course, is not to do, and how many politicians have these bold plans, big press conferences, and they're not accountable for the result. Or candidly, they make up numbers. So we also became the first city to actually submit our greenhouse gas emissions to a third party to validate our efforts. Just last September 2008, we were there with the head of the Sierra Club, Carl Pope, folks from the NRDC, Environmental Defense Fund, and others, right there at Crissy Field, right next to the Golden Gate Bridge, and we announced that we've already rolled back our greenhouse gas emissions 5% below 1990 levels. We did that by 2008. Real progress. And I'm here to tell you, it was easy. There was nothing complicated about this. Our economy has grown, not contracted. It took, in many cases, just a piece of paper and a pen to do the following. The most aggressive green building standards in America. You want to construct private sector building in our city, you got to meet the highest levels of sustainability, with the LEED certification going up to LEED Gold by the end of the calendar year next year. You want to do a remodel in the city, you've got to meet the same sustainability standards. By the way, we forget about the construction, the design, and the operation of buildings being one of the biggest factors and contributors to CO2 and greenhouse gases. Absolutely essential that we reconcile that. Second thing we did is we got serious about our vehicle fleet. Again, pen to paper. I said, if we're going to buy a car, why are we buying one of these big gas guzzlers and spending all this money on gas? Why not just buy alternative fuel cars, save the money on gas, and actually advance our environmental framework? We already have the highest percentage of renewables operating in our public transit fleet of any city in the United States of America. We were the first to require, you probably read that Michael Bloomberg did this in New York, required all his taxi cabs to be alternative fuel cabs. Well, you probably didn't know that a year prior, I was out there After he announced it, by the way, on the Today Show, I announced it a year prior on local cable channel 26. You probably missed that as we move forward, requiring the conversion of our cab fleet. We actually took our entire diesel fleet, first city to do this, and we converted it. It's called the FOG program, appropriate for a San Francisco mayor. But in this case, the FOG was fats, oils, and grease cycle program. We picked up from restaurants and Google and Stanford University and others that we just pick up all their vats of grease and we convert it into biodiesel. And we have that loop that's being produced within the city and county of San Francisco. So the entire fleet was on B20, biodiesel. We even got some of our emergency folks to agree to do a pilot. See, ambulances and the fire trucks, folks in public safety, they don't like this stuff necessarily, but they decided to come on board, and now they're some of our biggest proponents. We got serious about creating a ubiquitous infrastructure for electric vehicles. You want the big game changer in terms of energy independence. Let's start electrifying our vehicle fleet. And in San Francisco, we have, on a per capita basis, within the region, the Bay Area, 9 million folks, we have the highest adoption in per capita of alternative fuel vehicles. It seems obvious now that we take advantage of tomorrow's technology, not yesterday's, which are hybrid, 1990s technology, and focus on tomorrow's technology, which are plug-in hybrids or pure electric. And we're working to build out that infrastructure and standardize it for the entire region. We got very serious about solar. Again, you're thinking San Francisco and solar. Doesn't make a lot of sense until you consider that there's no city in the world that does more on a per capita basis than Berlin, and they've barely seen the sun in Berlin, in Germany. Yet they've done it. In San Francisco, we now, after being one of the lowest generators of solar power in the state of California, now have the highest per capita generation of solar in the state of California. And we did it with the most aggressive local incentives for solar installations. And now we're about to launch through this Melrose district, I won't bore you with the details, but a financing strategy where it literally costs you nothing to install solar, costs you nothing to improve your energy efficiency or weatherize your home or deal with the issue of water and water conservation. We'll actually provide those loans up front and connect them not to you as an individual, but to the building and amortize it over the course of the life of that loan. There's no excuse, my point, to not moving in that direction. We've also been very aggressive on urban wind. Wind is not just the phenomenon of these larger rural suburban areas. There are also, I think, great opportunity to do urban wind generation. And we've come out with some very innovative strategies, including, by the way, taking, in essence, a wind farm and now beginning the process. 5 years I've worked on this, to actually put that underwater right at the mouth of the Golden Gate Bridge on the northern side if you're driving up towards Sausalito. And we'll actually have the first commercial project on the west coast of the United States of a tidal flow strategy. So all the energy that comes in and out of the mouth of that San Francisco Bay can be harnessed. We're also now just months away from a pilot to do a wave energy pilot 5 miles off the coast of California. Imagine a coast without all those oil rigs, and instead replace them with renewable strategies like wind and wave generation that harnesses Mother Nature and the remarkable and awesome power that exists in our oceans. These are the new strategies that we're trying to adopt and advance. We also have the most aggressive recycling program in the country, and boy, you want controversy. Gay marriage, easy, not much controversy. Requiring composting in your city, that's controversial. And we became the first city in the United States to require composting of all food scraps. This is a big idea, and it's significant. Landfills are a huge problem. Food scraps are a significant problem, exponentially worse, methane gas, than CO2. We've got to get serious about it. We are now getting serious about it. Our recycling rates are now 72%, the highest in the country. We look forward to getting to 75 by next year in 2010, and I want to get to zero waste by 2020. And we're going to get there because we're doing things, again, no other city's doing. And that's, by the way, why we got rid of plastic bags. Boy, we drove the Grocers Association crazy. Then I got even more audacious when I started saying, well, why we spend all this money as a municipal government on water bottles? Heck, we've got this remarkable system up in the Hitchhichi, up in the Sierra Nevadas, that feeds our needs in terms of water, yet we're buying $1 million+ a year as a government for all these fancy water bottles that end up in our waste stream, 1 billion of them a year in California, and the water is tap water. With respect to Aquafina and Dasani, it's tap water. You're spending 10,000 times more than you would by turning on your tap. It's actually less regulated than your own tap water. You're smarter than that, just on an economic basis, let alone an ecological basis, and the lack of recycling in that industry. So we got aggressive on that. And by the way, if you want to save money, you should demand that of your local city council as well. City employees can do very well with filtered water. They didn't like it at first, now they get it. Actually, you can get paid more at the end of the year, right? A little extra money in the coffers. So when we have wage negotiations, there's a little bit more to talk about. We also got rid of styrofoam takeout containers. People say, well, this is nanny government. Hardly. No one noticed the difference. Big deal. We phased it in over an appropriate period of time, so the restaurants didn't particularly care. They loved the grease cycle program. They were spending $50 to $100 a month to have someone else haul it off. Now it doesn't cost them a penny. Every one of these things creates real jobs. Every one of these recycling efforts creates green-collar jobs. And these are jobs that we are targeting very specifically to make sure that they lock folks that have been locked out of the old industrial economy, the polluting economy, that they're locked into this new green economy. The most aggressive green jobs program, I would argue, and workforce training programs in the country. The solar, we'll give you that $7,000 local solar rebate if you hire from one of our local workforce training programs, which are dominantly focusing on reentry to deal with recidivism in our prisons, dominantly focused on folks that barely got their GED, dominantly focused on underserved communities. And by the way, in most communities, 4 out of 5 toxic waste dumps in the United States of America are in predominantly African American communities. Think about that. If we're going to get serious about the issue of the environment, we've got to reconcile the issue of environmental justice, and we've got to take advantage of the opportunity as we green our economy to make sure we lock in this new economy, the opportunity to reconcile income inequality and reconcile the issue of that environmental justice. And that's what we're trying to do. If you don't want to do that, we'll just give you a $3,000 rebate. Well, guess what everyone's doing? They're hiring from our workforce training programs. All that composting, every single one of these kids, all of them coming out prisons, coming out of our public housing, and coming out with second chance opportunities. So we're growing our economy as we're advancing the most aggressive environmental protocols in the country. Dreaming and doing. Do not accept the notion that this is so difficult. Do not accept the notion that this can't be done. I can bore you with 50 other proposals that we've advanced, and again, none of them are particularly complicated. They are, at times, particularly controversial, though. Issue of health care. San Francisco is the only city in the United States of America with a universal health care plan. Cities are not supposed to be able to do that. The oldest adage in the world, my mom used to tell me this all the time, said, if you don't like the answer, ask a better question. All these years, we were asking the wrong question. How do we provide universal health insurance to all our uninsured? We couldn't answer it because we couldn't figure out a way to afford it. So we asked this question: how do we provide universal health care to all of our uninsured? And as a consequence, we now have the only health care plan in the country. Yes, it's a public option. But last time I checked, yesterday, the American flag was still flying at City Hall. It was not replaced with the Canadian flag. We're doing quite well. We didn't raise taxes. We didn't create a new bureaucracy. Real public-private choice within the plan. And now the largest health insurer in the state of California, one of the largest in the nation, Kaiser Permanente, just joined our public plan. Why did they join it? We were delivering quality, comprehensive health care. This was independently analyzed. There have been 3 reports on this effort, at $279 a month, regardless of pre-existing condition. You sign up for it after you're sick, and you still get it. You can end up in the emergency room, and we'll ask you if you have health insurance, and you go, no, and you're now devastated, and then they say, well, wait one moment, and 20 minutes later, you have comprehensive coverage. Nothing to worry about. Based on your ability to pay, again, no exemptions for pre-existing conditions. See, we discovered something that you already knew. You're smart. Just took us a little longer to figure it out, that it costs a lot less money to keep you well than it does to treat you after you're sick. And you know what? Again, this was easy. My point, we wildly overstate the complexity of some of these things. 5 biggest hospitals in the state of California joining our plan. Real choice, real public option, creating real competition and driving down costs. I'm just telling you, I'm not asserting this. I can prove this to you. You may not agree with a public option, a public plan. God forbid, I don't want to get in that debate, except I would suggest before you dismiss it completely, take a look at what we've done. Consider the success of our program and look at the lives that we've saved. And that's not my word. Those are the words of people that have written about their experience, saying, I wouldn't be here today had it not been for what you guys have done. And here's the most exciting part about it, and it connects the dot in my last few seconds, is now we're focusing on wellness and prevention. And you know what? This is what we should have been focused on the whole time. We're not worried about access anymore. We put salad bars in every one of our public schools. We even put a big vegetable garden in front of City Hall. Boy, they mocked me after I did that. And then someone by the name of Michelle Obama did the same thing at the White House, and they said, well, you're a visionary. Reason he did it was to focus on what we're eating and our drinking problem. When I see a 6th or 7th grader drinking a 64-ounce Big Gulp, it breaks my heart. That person's literally killing himself or herself. We've got to address this. And there's still not enough focus, with all due respect to Congress, there's not enough focus on wellness and prevention. The exciting thing about what we're focused on, that connection, and here's the connection as my time is up, that connects the two. See, our food policy is also reconcile this. California is one of the most agriculturally robust regions in the world. Yet most of our food is fresh frozen and shipped all over the world. And here we are in these urban cores, and we have no connection to our rural and suburban agricultural communities. Here have the opportunity to get some of the most organic, the best produce in the world, yet we don't have a relationship. So we're building partnerships now, and we're helping the small farmers. We're focusing on wellness. It's advancing our prevention programs, health, and the environment, connecting the two in a substantive and significant way. Final point. Michelangelo said this best. The biggest risk is not that we aim too high and miss it. It's that we aim too low and reach it. Think about that in the context of your life. Think about that in the context of your profession and advancing your passion. We're so much more capable than we give ourselves credit for, but we have to be willing to take risks, make mistakes, learn from them, and fail forward fast. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. Here's a question for you. When you drove into Houston,
yes,
what did you see? What was your gut reaction? Things you would change, things you would keep the same?
I loved everything I saw. And by the way, I did. I immediately, if you look at my little iPhone, you see all the photos I have. It's kind of pathetic. It's of the bus racks or bus shelters and your bike racks. But I did notice you guys are doing a great job with the parking meters and the solar on top. The streets are beautiful. They're clean, at least the parts I drove by. You got a lot of trees and foliage, which is significant in terms of that urban canopy, which is important. This is a magnificent, it's one of the most diverse cities in the country, too. And I've always believed that composite strength is our capacity to reconcile our differences but unite around our common humanity, the things that bind us together. And you think about everything that's wrong around the world, it's because people are focused on their differences, not focused on the things that bring them together. And so our capacity, that's what's so magnificent about cities, is the ability for people to reconcile those differences and live together and advance together, prosper together, challenging, but prosper together across those differences. And those are the things that I was marked by when I came into Houston. I've been to Mineola many times. I've been to Dallas, been to Austin. I have not had the opportunity to be in Houston, so this is my first impression.
Thank you so much. Another round for Gavin. Thank you.
Thank you.